Good morning, good evening, good day, and welcome to Dramabuds. I'm Francine, I really love K-dramas, and I'm going to spend as much time as I want talking about them. Welcome to my podcast. So hello everyone. On today's episode, we're going to talk about a K-drama that in my opinion is just one of the best out there. Like in the modern era of, post 2013 or whatever. Like this is the best of the best. And it wasn't just good, it was good enough to get another season. So, yes, if you've read the title, we're talking about Stranger 1 and Stranger 2, also known as Secret Forest. And like a little background on me. Obviously, I'm not very I'm not very good at keeping up with things, especially if it's like a mystery type show. I also have like a short attention span. Like sometimes the shows that I end up liking, I don't even expect that I would end up liking them. But this show I ended up loving, despite the fact that I couldn't understand it most of the time. And I had to watch with someone, with my sister as usual, just to understand things. And like for the longest time, I've avoided watching this show because it looks boring and it looks so serious. It's just like, I'm not saying, I like comedies in general or rom-coms. I mean, in general, I do lean towards the more serious side. Definitely. But this just seemed too boring and too dark for me. And it didn't seem like a thriller type. Well, I was wrong. But I digress. I really did not expect that I would be so invested in this show. But alas, here we are. So, yeah, it looks boring and too serious. And it's a mystery show. So you really might not understand what's going on most of the time. But I swear, if you just stick with the show and just trust the writer, the journey is worth it. So for the purposes of this review, I guess, it's a mystery. So I'm really hesitating on like, should I, reveal as much, or am I making this podcast for people who haven't watched the show? Because I feel like in my other episodes, it's like, yeah, it's a character journey, I guess. So it's okay to spoil some of the milestones and events in their lives that lead to their development. But with here, it's a mystery, and I feel like if I spoil it, it just ruins everything. So I don't want to spoil much. But I will talk about like the main characters and like per season, some of the characters that I personally loved and like what should you expect in both of the seasons, and in general why it's worth watching. So yeah, just with that disclaimer that I will try not to spoil much, but I will try to convince you to the very best of my ability to watch this show because it's so good. So here's a one-sentence summary of the entire show, both seasons. A prosecutor and a detective team up to solve a murder mystery. That is essentially what happens in both seasons of the show. So, you know what? Let's just describe those two because they're the ones who really matter. I mean, I'm not saying the others don't matter. Don't trust anyone. Don't overlook any character here, okay? You never know what their involvement is in this entire web of mysteries and what. Okay, so our first character is Wang Shimok, played by Cho Seung Woo, the man, the myth, the legend himself. So Wang Shimok is the prosecutor in the show. When he was a child, he was easily overstimulated, I think, by certain frequencies of sound. There's a medical term for it, but I forgot and I didn't research on it. So yeah, because he's overstimulated, hypersensitive, he often had like painful headaches and like, would I say anger issues? But like because he was easily overstimulated, he would want people to stop. So people interpreted those as anger issues. And so to treat that, they cut out a part of his brain. They mentioned it in the show, which once again I forgot, and I don't know which episode to start looking, but they just cut out a part of his brain that prevents essentially those episodes from happening and reduces his headaches. But because of that, the part that they cut out, he lost like his sense of empathy and his desires, I guess. And in general, because he lacks empathy, he also now lacks social skills. So that's how he, grew up in society. So he's just highly intelligent only. He's very objective since he doesn't have like personal desires or any agenda or, desire to be greedy or selfish. So yeah, intelligence plus objectivity makes him a great prosecutor, right? That's a pretty good career path for someone like that. He's good at his job, yeah, but he's tactless. Like people aren't aware of his past, his history, and like the surgery that he went through. So people just think, yeah, you're good, you're a great prosecutor, sure, but you're tactless and you don't know how to get along with people. So, he's really not going to rise up in a system that highly involves like favors and, helping each other out, quote unquote. So yeah, he doesn't get tied up in like the corruption of the system. But because of that, he doesn't, no matter how good he is, how upright he is and objective, he doesn't have like the connections to rise up in the system there. And, he has no social skills, he has no connections, he has no friends. Like, he knows he's going to live a lonely life. But, like, since he doesn't have any feelings or desires or anything, like, to him, he's just like, yes, I'm going to be lonely forever. And he feels nothing about that. Which is why he's such a fascinating human being. Wang Shimok. Anyway. So, but even if like they already did that surgery to cure his headaches, like sometimes he still has those episodes where like his brain, his ears not explode, but like there's this loud ringing sound and he can't stop it. And it's just like a painful splitting headache type. And he like passes out even because of the pain. So like the theory is, I think this was also like explicitly mentioned in the show, is that he still feels emotions very slightly, and when it becomes extreme, that's when those episodes are triggered. And because he doesn't like, he feels those emotions so like slightly, just very little emotions, he also doesn't know how to express them anymore. So that's kind of how he ended up as the person that he is. So that's Wang Shimok in a nutshell, essentially, at the start of the show. Our next character is Han Yeo-jin, played by Baeduna, the queen. The queen herself. Okay. So Han Yeo-jin is a homicide detective. I think she's the only woman in her division or in her station. So it's not like she's, actively discriminated upon for being a woman working in the field. It's not like, oh, you're a woman, you can't run, you can't catch culprits. It's not like that, but it's still a male-dominated world that she's living in. So, you deal with it. Like, people still, respect her and they trust her opinions and then her insights and everything. Like, it's not like that. But, it's still there. It's still there. Like, the bias is still kind of there. All right. Despite like the bleakness of her job, being a homicide detective and solving murders and stuff, like she's still a cheerful, warm, and compassionate person. Like she still holds on to that warmth despite how bleak, the world she lives in is. Like, I remember this specific incident. This one, I'll spoil it because it's just a character thing. But, like, the victim, the very first victim, had, like, an old mother. Yeah, his mother was old already. And, like, she lived in the house where his body was found. And so, like, Yojin like took in the victim's mother after seeing that she was going to go home to the house where her son died. Like, that's terrible. And so she did it in a very like, how do you say it? It's like she shoehorned her way into dragging that mother into her home. You know, it's like, you will have no choice in this, but in a very like warm way. You know, it's like, I know you, old lady, will not say anything about it, but I will take the initiative to drag you out of that situation and give you like, and then, you know, not let you be alone in such a painful time in your life. Right? That's such a, like, no one needed to tell her to do that. Like, you know, even the victim's mother did not need to say anything, but it was her initiative to, you know, bring her in and take care of her somehow. I just love that. I love that moment that she didn't have to say anything. Like, she didn't have to say, oh, I'm doing this to, you know, to make sure you're not lonely, to make sure you're not living in the house where your son died. Like, she didn't say anything. She just dragged her in. Like, no, you're coming with me. You're gonna stay at my home. Just like that. I love Han Yojin's like warmth and all. And she's such a weird person. Like, her house, her rooftop apartment or whatever, it's like full of like comics and like bad drawings, and she just does whatever she wants, you know. It's like, I don't know, usually I hate characters who are like cheerful. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm saying this. I hate cheerful people, you know. I hate cheerful characters. I hate it when they're, you know, happy despite everything that's going on in their life. Like, no, it's not like that. I hate it when it feels like, you know, their cheerfulness is like one-dimensional. It's like, it's all that you are. But with Han Yojin, I don't know, this is just a biased statement, okay? Let me be. But like, she's old, you know? She's in her late 30s. She's like she's in her late 30s by the time of Stranger. It's like, it's her choice to be cheerful and to be weird and to, you know, do whatever she wants despite the darkness in her life. Like, it's not just, you know, I'm cheerful and naive about it. She's cheerful because, you know, she already lives in such a dark world and in such a dark, like, it's not industry, but like her job, like what she does for a living is really bleak. And like, it's so easy to like lose your humanity and your optimism, but it's her choice to hold on to that and still be good at her job and to not let that optimism get into the way of what she does, like as a detective. So I just love that about her. I love Han Yojin's like cheerfulness. And like, you know, in contrast to Shimok, since they're, of course, like the two people you see all the time, it's like, she's such a warm and friendly person and she actually has social skills. But, you know, similar to Shimok, she doesn't care much about like social graces and how that leads to, you know, like corruption and special treatment and how like that police prosecution corruption works, how their systems are kind of like being eaten away by corruption, especially if it's in the way of the truth. So that's what they both have in common. It's like, I know your social graces and I will follow them, sure. But if it's in the way of the truth, if it's like hiding something, if it's protecting people that have done something wrong, then I will not care about whatever, you know, social norms and systems you've put in place. So yeah, they're a perfect team in that way. We'll get to that later. Trust me, I will not forget about them. Okay. You know, other characters are great. Like, really, really, they are. I could say so much about them. But, you know, sometimes, like, their characters are just so tied, so intertwined with the plot. And so it's just difficult to say anything about them without spoiling much about the plot. So I will refrain. I'll talk about them later if I find a way to insert them without spoiling anything. So now I'll discuss like the plot of season 1. Okay. So Wang Shimok is tasked to prosecute a murder case. And he makes like this bold promise to the public on a TV show that he will find the true culprit in 2 months. everyone's just like, why did you say 2 months? Why did you give yourself such a strict timetable? But okay, Wang Ximok, you do you. And eventually he investigates more and more. Like, he uncovers more corruption in the prosecution, like in his workplace, yeah, and in the entire system that they've put in place. And so he is tasked to form a special investigation team to like root out that corruption, which gives him like the jurisdiction, how do you say that, the power to dig further and find and like realize that apparently this murder is just related to a much larger like scheme or web of mysteries and people involving the prosecution, the police, and even private individuals and private companies. That's all I'll say about season 1's plot. It's a murder mystery that goes deeper, apparently. There we go. So, what's good about season 1? First of all, Wang Ximok. Like, here we go. He's just so fascinating. Like, thinking about, when we think about characters, we often think about like their motivations, their goals, their feelings. But how do you write a character with no desires? Because like a motivation involves desire, right? A goal has desires involved in it. So if he has no desires because he does not feel any particular way towards anything, what motivates him? Like, are you really saying he has no motivations, goals, or feelings? Feelings, yeah, we are kind of on the side of, yeah, he doesn't feel much. Sure. But motivations and goals, because he seems to be highly driven, right? Like, it's still so hard for me to grasp, like, what makes him tick? What makes him so determined to find the truth? It's just so... Okay, like, here. Like, does he do it out of, like, anger or disgust over their actions? But then that would involve, like, him actively feeling anger and disgust. Like, that would involve him being, like, cognizant of that and really feeling it. And that's what drives him. But, like, does he do it to, to change the world? Is that how lofty his ambitions and motivations and goals are? Like, I still can't pin it down. Like, what exactly makes him do what he does? Okay? And, like, okay, it's mentioned that he feels things slightly, but, like, what's the extent of that slightly? It's, like, sometimes he does have expression. Sometimes he looks like he feels anger or surprise. But that's still linked. Like, those are like the more simple feelings for me. Like, does he feel happiness? Like, when he achieves things, it seems like he doesn't care. Like, when he's praised or when he's given opportunities or when he achieves something, like, it just seems like, okay, I did this. He doesn't care about the praise or the compliments or the opportunities. It's just like, yes, I did that. What? I don't understand. Okay, another thing that I do not understand about Wang Ximok is like, okay, he knows how to navigate social norms. Like, I mean, despite the fact that he doesn't seem to care about them, like, he doesn't do it, to please. Okay, here. Like, he apologizes, he bows, he follows, people's patterns, I guess, like how he's expected to act, just for the sake of doing it, I guess, to blend in, ? But he doesn't really do it to please others or to project an image of himself. Like, he doesn't act in certain ways just to please others or to manipulate them into doing what he wants or for his own benefit, for his own, like, ambitions, for him to rise up or anything. So he's not like a sociopath or whatever. I just, like, once again, I'm just throwing questions out here because that's how I feel about his character sometimes, but not in a bad way, not in an I don't get him because his character doesn't make sense. It's just like, as a person, as as a viewer, I guess, I navigate a character's like journey through their emotions, right? And their motivations and their goals, their internal journey. Yes, that's natural when you're watching something. But when a character explicitly has such limited like sense of empathy and emotions and has no desires and particular likes or dislikes, I guess, like how do you navigate that? How do you put that into words? Right? So Wang Xing was just so fascinating for me. You know, and like as the conflict essentially revolves around his workplace and the people that he works with, like this season really explores him and how he reacts to everything, and how like the idea of him having no emotions or anything is challenged. Because yeah, how do you react when you are unable to trust the people that you work with? I don't know. Once again, I am just throwing questions out there because I think Wang Xingmo he's just a brilliant character, you know? Like you'd think like, okay, so you made a character with no emotions. Okay, other people have done that, but they play it off as like, oh, he's just cold, but he secretly has a warm heart inside. It's like, I mean, you could say that about Wang Ximok, but in general, he really just doesn't have emotions. Or does he? You know, it's like, it's just so fascinating. I could go on, but let's not. Let's not go on. Okay, so next great thing about season 1 is just the pairing, of course, of Wang Ximok and Han Yojin. Like, they are a perfect pair without the romance. Yes, okay. Like first they meet at the crime scene and then they naturally start investigating together. Like barely any, fuss about it. Just, okay, whatever. So I found this. What did you find? Oh, I found this. Okay. Like the weird thing is that, Shimok being Shimok and having no friends and no social skills and not caring about it. And, Yojin being like just the warm, bubbly angel that she is. Like their personalities should not mesh this well together. But Yojin is friendly and she's persistent about it, Like it's not like she's the annoying type of friendly and persistent that she'll like, worm her way into his life. No, it just kind of happened. And the thing is, like, he doesn't treat her as a nuisance or anything. Like, he doesn't seem to care. Like, okay, you exist, but you are helpful to the investigation. And, okay, actually, that's wrong. He doesn't even treat her like he's using her or whatever. Like, nothing like that. It's just that you're okay as a person, right? Like, he just sees how they're always on the same page. And, like, she's also, like, when they started unraveling more and more and realizing, like, this may be tied to the people we work with. So she asked, like, are you ready to do this? Like, to dig deep into corruption, even if it involves, like, both of our workplaces and the people we work with and our future in those institutions. And, like, the fact that she doesn't just, like, dissuade him or stop him, like, she's the same as him. It's like there is a truth to be found out there. And it will put us in danger. Yes, sure. It will put the dignity of our work and of the people around us in danger. Yes. But there is a truth out there and someone has to find it. And it might as well be us. Right? Like, how do you just find someone like that, Who's just perfect for you in various ways. Work-wise, we'll talk about the other side of that relationship when I'm when I'm ready for it. But yeah, like when they actually started working together in the special investigation team where Shimok like got prosecutors, like a lawyer, independent lawyer, and then like some police people, like it's Yojin and a detective that she brought in that she also trusts. It's like, Shimok when he was looking at the lineup of people in his office, like he had some doubts about this person and that person and this person. But with Yeojin, when she found out that he was digging into the people they worked with, I think a lot happened in season 1 and 2, so I'm not entirely sure about the details. But like, yeah, when she found out that he was digging into other people in their team, she asked like, so are you doubting me or something? Or should I be watching out for someone, looking into me? And he said, no, you're the only one. I don't have to do that too. Something like that. I'm sure I got that line wrong. Perhaps I'll rewatch all their moments in season 1 just to find out. But yeah, she is the only one that he completely trusts, I swear, to not be involved in any sort of like corruption, special treatment, politics, whatever. Like Han Yeojin is as straight as an arrow, just like him. And so that's why they're always on the same side. Like in a case where anyone can be the culprit and they've really doubted everyone, they're the only ones that they can fully trust. And what a perfect partnership. I just love them so much. But let's stop there. Okay, next thing to discuss in season 1 is the plot. Okay, so yeah, I mentioned it's just a murder mystery where things like fan out into more mysteries. And so you uncover things slowly. And you feel like you're either like right beside them as they figure things out, or you're even one step ahead. Like you see into, the perspectives of the people that are most suspicious at the time. So like sometimes you have more information than Shimok and Yeojin, but it's okay that they don't figure it out right away because the information really is not available to them. So like the murder mystery is at the forefront. Like the other connections being revealed they're just being revealed as the murder mystery is being solved. And so like every detail is important, really. And each character has a role to play. And so you doubt everyone. The same way, Shimok doubts everyone. But you also get attached to them. And okay, I'll just talk about the ones I got super attached to. Okay, first is Young Eun-soo, played by Shin Ye-sun. So she's a young prosecutor being trained by Shimok. And she really looks up to him. And at some point, she starts developing feelings for him? ? And it's like, why, girl? I mean, I don't understand Eun-soo. He's clearly very much not emotionally available. Why do you do this to yourself? It's not going to happen, The thing is, like, Eun-soo is one of the first characters to get like, oh, so she has a deeper backstory? She's not just the young prosecutor? And so from the very beginning, you kind of have this seed of doubt because she's the first person you start like suspecting. The first person Shimok starts suspecting. At first, I was annoyed by her because she wouldn't leave Wang Shimok alone. Like she would always try to figure out like what's he doing, what has he figured out. Like she just seemed so suspicious. But eventually, as it was obvious that she is not involved in the murder mystery, you realize like in many ways she just really wants to help the investigation team and Wang Shimok. Like she was really hurt by the fact that she was not part of the investigation team. And I'm like, girl, he's been doubting you for since the beginning. So perhaps you were not entirely the best candidate because he would just keep doubting you more and more. So like, don't push it. But yeah, she just wants to help, right? In some ways, like she got in trouble because of this murder case because she handled it first and things went wrong and people blamed her for something that happened. And so essentially Shimok, by finding the true culprit, will clear her name and help her out. And so yeah, in some ways she wants to help because of that, but she really wants to help because it's Shimok. And once again, girl, I get it, but I don't. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? But anyway, yeah, Eun-soo, I love her. Watch out for her. She's Eun-soo. Okay, next character that I absolutely loved is So Dong-jae, played by Lee Jun-hyuk. If I could describe him, I will describe him in a way that is very vivid, so you will know exactly what kind of character he is. He's a weasel, you know? He's obviously suspicious. He's always at the wrong place at the wrong time, or the right place at the wrong time. Just, he's not supposed to be there. And, you know, he just gets himself in trouble. And he thinks he's smart, but they're all way smarter than him. And so he just like puts himself in a position where he should just probably shove his foot up his mouth, but he won't stop like doing things. You know, he's like a chihuahua, you know, all bark, no bite. Nothing he does actually hurts or impacts anything except getting himself into trouble and getting himself in a bad position. I mean, he's just very paranoid and he's always trying to save himself. But despite all of that, I love Dong Jae so much. Because it's just like watching him get himself into terrible situations and being like, you know, Dong Jae, if you just shut up for like 10 minutes, you would not have had to deal with this. But because you're stupid, you're going to have to deal with the consequences of your actions. Oh, he's so funny. I love Dong Jae. Like, I love to hate him. You know, he's the type that you love to hate, but really you do love, right? And it helps that he's just a beautiful man. I love Lee Jun-hyuk. So cute. So, once again, I said the other characters are great. I swear they're so great. But these are just my two like favorite supporting people who I can talk about without spoiling everything. Because the others, like, I do love you, but the way I love you is related to the actual story, so I can't. Here's my advice. Trust no one and love everyone. Or hate everyone. I don't know. I just have feelings for them. Get attached to them. And then we'll see what happens to your faves. Yeah. It's that kind of show where like people's actions have consequences. And so not everyone has plot armor here, okay? Just saying. Despite all the good, I only made one point here. There's one like something that I just didn't entirely love about this first season, in which I felt like, as I was, you know, thinking of what to say about Shimok and Yojin, I felt like I couldn't describe Han Yojin as well as I could describe Wang Shimok. At least in season 1, at the very, very beginning of the show. Because I feel like season 1 really explores his story more, and like the conflict is heavily focused on Wang Shimok's world. And so Yojin, like, I'm not saying she's an underdeveloped character, that she's, you know, just an accessory, that Wang Shimok's the real protagonist. No. That's a disservice to her. And like that's what I feared also. Like I feared that I was doing a disservice to Han Yojin's character. But genuinely at the start of the show, I feel like it was really Wang Shimok's world here. And so she was the other perspective, and she was the one who helped him like get out of his not get out of his shell, but like she was the one person he could trust. Like she was his sounding board. They were each other's sounding board, and they were, you know, figuring things out in their own worlds and coming together and figuring this mystery out together. But in terms of like characterization and the connection to the plot and to the mystery, like it's Wang Shimok's world. So that was my kind of, not criticism, but I guess just comment on the first season. So now we talk about the second season. The plot is that 3 years after the events of season 1, like the issue of investigative rights belonging to either the prosecutors or the police is like a hot issue. If you ask me to describe investigative rights, I will not. I think it involves like requesting the warrant, like who gets to request the warrant from the judges, like who gets to say that a case should be investigated further or that a case is closed, like things like that. I am really not entirely sure. But yeah, in general, people have been losing trust in the prosecution, especially after like the incidents from season 1, because it did really go deep into the prosecution. But the prosecutors need to maintain their power. And so The prosecutors need to maintain their power. The police need to convince people that they should have the power. It's messy, okay? And so they form a council with like several members of the prosecution, several policemen, and then they essentially, dig on each other and try to discredit the other and say, you're corrupt. No, you're corrupt. You messed this up. Okay, in an attempt to like find evidence against like the opposing side, both camps like bring up old cases and old like incidents. And it's their mistake. They decided like, let's try to bring up old things to use against the other camp. And now, Wang Shimok and Han Yeo-jin, like, of course, they're part of that council. They can't help themselves. They have to investigate, right? And they have to unravel a new web of mysteries just to find something against each other. But once again, they can't work together as freely as they did before because now they're on opposing sides, And each side is trying to frame the other as the one at fault in these cases that they're digging up. But the truth is, they're both at fault. They're both corrupt. They're both broken systems. But yeah, that's the main conflict of this season. It's prosecution versus police. Yeah, here's the good stuff about season 2. Like, in terms of the plot, it still involves like figuring out a mystery, right? And so instead of doing another like whodunit, it starts with the police versus prosecutors. And like the mystery comes as a result of that initial conflict or that agenda. And the thing is, the agenda itself affects the investigation because they're not just like, at least in the people that Shimok and Yeojin are working with, they're not just trying to find the truth. No, they're trying to find a truth that will point to the other camp being the one at fault or not deserving essentially the sole investigative rights. And so they're not trying to find the truth. They're trying to find something to use against each other. And so, Shimok and Yeojin, how will they deal with that? Another great thing about the plot is that, corruption and like special treatment and all the things that they tried to address in season 1, it still plays a part because despite, the big revelations at the end of season 1, society still is not perfect. Like, that corruption is still deep, deep, deep into society, and they can't just solve that with one big expose, it just ties a lot of things together, and it's not just another simple murder mystery. So now that the season like involves, the police and the prosecution, and not just mostly the prosecution, now we get to focus more on Han Yeojin. And so Yeojin kind of changed slightly over the years, like because of the events of season 1, like she was promoted and now she doesn't work in the field as a detective. She works in police administration. I think that's the term for it. And she's a little more caught up in the politics of what they're doing. Okay, I remember this iconic scene in episode 12 of season 2, where they had this council meeting, right, with the police and the prosecutors, and they were just digging on each other and like trying to bring up evidence against each other. And then, Shimok, after it, they were going somewhere together. Shimok said like, despite everything that we were saying a while ago, like, a while ago we were fighting as enemies and now we're working together again. It's just weird. And then Shimok said, it's not like I don't trust the police. And Yeojin said, and it's not like if we get sole investigative rights, everything will be solved right away. And so, Shimok asked, why didn't you say that earlier when we were having the meeting? And then Yeojin said, it wasn't the time to say that, or some things should be said later, something like that. And then Shimok said, you weren't the kind of person to postpone things. And the thing is, like, I love like the silence that followed that in Yeojin's side, because it's not like he's saying like, oh, you're a different person now, you're eaten by the system, you're not the same objective, truth driven person that I trusted years ago. It's not like that. It wasn't accusatory of by any means. It's just that she's in a whole different world. It's like back then as a detective, all she had to focus on was whatever case she was working on. But now, since she's in police administration and she's part of this reformation department and this committee, like, the words she says, like, it will affect the entire police system, right? She can't be careless with her words and actions. And so, like, unlike Shimok, you know, who is just completely 100% does not care about those social norms and whatever, it's like, in some ways, Yeojin does care about the police, like the system that she works in. She cares about her boss and all that. And so she has to be careful because, like, she does, in some ways, she just wants to do her job. I don't know how to explain that. It's once again, I'm not saying she's a corrupt person, that she only cares about politics or whatever. It's just that she has to care now. You know, she can't be naive about this. In some ways, she has to trust that, you know, that getting investigative rights will be good for them somehow. But when it does come to, like, the murder mystery aspect, like, she does still want to find the truth. But in that council meeting, in a game of politics, she has to play politics. Another great, like, development is how Yeojin found a mentor in Choi-bit, played by Jeon Ye-jin, who is her current boss in the reformation department, council, whatever. And, like, Choi-bit is one of the few women in such a high position among the police. And so, yeah, like, that's why she has to care about things that she's saying, about the politics of it all, because she does work closely with, you know, the mentor type person that she found. You know, in general, like, the story involves the police more, which is great, because now her world is explored more, at least compared to how it was explored in season 1. And the question is, like, you know, Shimok wouldn't change that much, right? Despite the time passing, despite working with new people and all the things that happened in season 1, like, he's still kind of the way he is. But how was Yeojin affected by all the changes around her? You know, once again, she's not a terrible person. She still holds on to, you know, that optimism and, like, the uprightness of it all and wanting to find the truth. But everything around her changed. Even where she is, it changed. So how will she adapt to those changes? Like, she's still a good, warm, upright person, but she can't help but be affected by her position and the responsibility that comes with it. I just love that. I loved how Yeojin, we just went deeper into her character without completely ruining her character, without saying, like, she's gonna be a completely different person. Like, no, she can still be the way she is, but she has to adapt. I just love that. Another character I loved is, as I mentioned, Choi-bit, played by Jeon Ye-jin. So she's the deputy chief of the National Intelligence Service, right? And so, like, at first you get really annoyed by Choi-bit because she's so heavily involved in, like, the media play to ruin the prosecutors and convince, like, the public that the police should have sole investigative rights. Like, oh, she's so manipulative, right? And at some point, I really hated her because I felt like everything she did, everything the police did, she would always say, like, how can we spin this to make the prosecutors look bad? And it's just like, why can't you just report, you know, objectively? Why can't you just report what happened? Why do you have to find a way to spin it against the prosecutors? However, it's her job. It's what she has to do. And she's made it this far by doing her job well, you know? And the thing is, even if you think she's manipulative or whatever, it's like, you know, she earns genuine respect from Han Yeojin. Like, Yeojin really, really respects her and looks up to her. But will that respect, like, taint, you know, Yeojin's, like, righteousness and her dedication to the truth? Like, I don't know. That's also something we have to explore in season 2. There are quite a few like new characters, but it's also interesting to observe like the changes in the characters who stayed from season 1 to season 2. That's what's most interesting for me. But that would involve telling you who stays and who leaves, and thus we shall move on. So now for the not so good parts of season 2. Well, first, though I did say there are a lot of new characters and they're pretty good, they're interesting, I just in general felt less attached to the new characters the way I was attached to like everyone in season 1. I don't know. I just feel like, I mean, I'm not saying the new characters were bad. It's just my feelings for season 1 in general. I guess it's more sentimental because you've been with them longer, I guess, or people seemed closer back then. Because at least in season 2, people were just kind of put together for the sake of the council or for this committee. And so it just feels like there's less history between them, among them, all of them, except for the ones from season 1 and all. So yeah, maybe that's why I personally felt less attached to the new characters. So here is, I guess, the common criticism of season 2. It's a lot more complicated than the first season, okay? And it's they pull up a lot of past cases and then they try to tie them together. Like, for some reason, they do end up tied up together, and then there's a new mystery to be solved, and you get culprits from each of those cases, because there is a possibility that they're all related to this new case. And then actually, like, once again, remember, the forefront, the most important conflict is that this is police versus prosecutors. And so, they're still finding like ways to frame that into their agenda or the other's agenda. It's a lot messier. And so in some ways, it is less gripping than the first season, because the first season was just a straightforward whodunit. And then like the other mysteries that are somehow uncovered are still tied to that first murder. So I get it. I get why people are saying that, season 1 was better because it was just tighter. Okay, I respect that. But in defense of season 2, first of all, for those who were just very like confused, and so you're saying that if you're so confused, that means the mystery itself was not tight enough. In my opinion, in my perspective as a viewer at the time, for me, it's okay to be lost in a mystery. Because like, you're discovering things alongside the main two. Like, in season 1, it felt like, yes, either we were discovering things along with them, or somehow we had a view into the perspective of who they were suspecting at the time, or whatever was going on behind the scenes. Like, in some ways, we were kind of one step ahead of them. But in this season, like, there were really times when I, as a viewer, felt as helpless as they felt. It's like I genuinely have no idea what's going to happen, what's going to turn up next, who to suspect, where to start looking. And so, like, it would be more annoying, right? If we kind of had this idea of where they were supposed to go or what was going on, but they just couldn't connect the dots. Like, how stupid are you two, right? That you can't figure it out. Like, it would be more annoying if the answer were so obvious, so telegraphed, but they were just being stupid, right? And so I was okay with being confused, because to me, a true mystery involves confusion and feeling lost. But when they did discover things, when things did uncover, it made sense. And I think the plot was still going along. It's just that sometimes they were in circles, because that's how an investigation is sometimes. Sometimes you do go in circles around this certain piece of evidence without knowing if it's really relevant to the truth or not. That's what this was about. Another, like, in defense of season 2, like, some people say it's less tight because, there wasn't like a clear message, I guess, of what was going on and why it had to go on. And I think, no, here's the thing. The lesson isn't just revealed with the truth itself, like with the truth of who done it or what were their motivations and all of that. Like, the thing is, the lesson, it's the journey, not the destination. The lesson is seen in how the investigation itself was conducted, not in the answer, in the truth that they found. Do you get my point? I feel like if you watch season 2, you'll understand it. If you watch it with that perspective, like, what matters is the journey, not the destination. What matters is, how they were able to come up with that truth and what prevented them, what helped them and what prevented them from finding the answer instead of like the actual answer itself. Try watching it with that perspective and you'll appreciate what season 2 is trying to say about their main conflict, about this police versus prosecutors thing. Because, you know what? Okay, I'll just spoil it. Like, their own agendas, like their desire to frame the other as the culprit or to, ruin the other institution's reputation, that in itself affects the investigation. And so, as much as Shimok and Yojin want to try to be like completely objective and just find the truth, they can't help that they were first tasked to investigate this or to look at this by their individual bosses who, implicitly are trying to say, Shimok, find a way to frame the police. Yojin, find a way to frame the prosecutors, or find a way to make it seem like this was their fault, not ours. Right? So you can't help that what initiates their investigations is a certain agenda. That's the theme. That's the message of the show. That as much as you want to try to be objective, to just find the truth, you can't help that agendas get in the way of the truth. And sometimes that is a hindrance to the truth. There we go. Okay, so here are just my general thoughts about why this show, both seasons, it's just worth watching. It's just one of the best K-dramas out there. That's all I gotta say. It's one of the best of the best. I don't know how to explain it. It's just, if you're looking at for a exquisite plot that's the right amount of simple but also complex. It does have a message in it somehow. The characters are good. The acting is fantastic. Like, it's great. It's a good crime mystery, and there are like genuinely shocking plot twists that make sense. Like, it's not just a plot twist for the sake of a plot twist, like, a makjang. You're like, those excessive like K-dramas that are kind of crazy and they don't make sense. Like, it's not like that. Okay? Like, there are some plot twists that make sense that aren't completely telegraphed, episodes ago. Like, in some ways, you already have someone that you're doubting, but you just don't know how to prove it. Same as Shimok and Yojin. Like, they have their suspects. They have their suspicions, but they just can't prove it yet. Same as you. And so that's what you're all trying to uncover. And that's just, it's so good. It's so, so, so good. Next, the acting is top-notch. I could say this for like essentially everyone here, but I really have to give a special shout out to Cho Seung Woo, who, by the way, won the Best Actor in the Baeksang Arts Awards for a role that supposedly has no feelings. Usually the winners there are like, the dramatic ones, the ones that are good at portraying a range of emotions. I know. I respect those actors as well to be able to portray a convincing emotional performance. But Cho Seung Woo portrayed a convincing non-emotional role. Literally no emotions in a role. So like, as an actor, right, when you get that script, when you get that description, how do you portray that? How do you internalize those thoughts? Just thoughts, not feelings, okay? Just those thoughts, and express them when they're not tied to emotions. Because an actor, if you're told to cry, to be sad and to cry, cry. If you're told to feel angry and shout, shout. How do you constantly express nothing and still somehow get like the nuances of whatever slight emotion Wang Shimok could be feeling? Like, okay, with his relationship with Han Yojin. Once again, it's not yet romantic. It's purely platonic. It's purely a good partnership, okay? Just built on trust and everything. And yet, in some ways, he is able to show concern for her without like looking at her with wide eyes or with softness in his, it's like just with a simple tilt of his head, with like a furrow of his brow, he's able to show that he is concerned about Han Yojin in this moment, or that he is angry at Unsu for being delusional, no, for just acting irrationally, because she wants to help the investigation or something like that. Like, he's so good at all the slight emotions. And Cho Seung Woo, the man, the myth, the legend himself, he really is when he has to show emotions, though. Because like that must mean that for Wang Shimok, it must be so intense by now. He must be feeling something so strong that he has to show that emotion. Cho Seung Woo does that so well. It's amazing. It's really amazing. Like, when he goes through, both seasons, he had just like the one big breakdown. And then he was like, emotions. But not in like suddenly he unlocks all his feelings. It's just like he somehow is less put together as he used to be. And now he is willing to, express a little bit more. Sometimes a lot more, but still in like just one bursts of emotions. And then he, tries to reel himself back into his usual self. It's just fascinating stuff. Fascinating stuff, Cho Seung Woo. You madman. Cannot believe you pulled Wang Shimok off. Really, I cannot think of another actor, who could pull Wang Shimok off there. And my favorite expression on Wang Shimok's expressionless face is his smile. Like the smallest, slightest smile, but only for Han Yojin. Alright, folks, here we go. Wang Shimok, Han Yojin. Wang Han, platonic soulmates. This is the hill I will die on. I love them so much as platonic soulmates. It's like, you know how Yojin like draws, right? And she's not good at it, but she does it for fun. She does it because she wants to, okay? And the cutest thing is, like, when they weren't even super close yet, it was just Yojin being herself, and Shimok accepting her as she is. Like, sometimes she would catch him like making slight expressions, like he's slightly annoyed, or his tiny smiles. Like, she was like, "Oh, look at your face," and then she just draws him, and then she gives the drawing to him as a gift. And the cute thing is that one time, like, something happened in Shimok's apartment, and then like the police had to investigate something there, and so like he asked Yojin to come in and get the evidence and all. And then as she was looking around, she saw on his desk that he kept her drawings, all of it there, and then she just like smiles at it, and then she goes on, and I'm just like, oh my god, you guys are so cute. I can't do this. I cannot. It's just, season 1 was just like the very, the odd energy of two people finding each other. And just like, for some reason, they already trust each other. Like, they already know that you are the kind of person I can trust. I love that. And in season 2, we have, modern day Romeo and Juliet. I'm kidding. It's like, the funny thing is that I think in season 2, they were really like pushing it more, but not pushing it in a romantic way, and just like literally the other characters are just like wondering what's going on with them and asking, like, is there something we should know about you two? Because like, for some reason, they're either always together or they're always sharing information to each other. And, like, not always, because of course, as prosecutors versus police, they do have to keep some things to themselves. But when it's just the two of them, it's like they do share information with each other, especially if it's related to the case, because they can't help it. It's like they only really trust the other person. Like, okay, here, a specific incident. Yojin, the police found this certain evidence in a photo that they all received. Both parties were able to receive the photo from the culprit, right? And so they ran it through forensics, and then police found evidence that this could be from the police. So this could be their fault. So they, of course, kept that hidden. And so while the council of prosecutors versus police were meeting, they were dinging on each other and all that. Like, there was evidence. Like, they had a feeling, Shimok had a feeling that there was something that, the police were keeping from them. Of course, the police wouldn't tell them that, hey, we've kind of found evidence that maybe points this to the police. So, of course, they wouldn't say that. And so, no one mentioned that to Shimok or to the other prosecutors. But, after the meeting, after an incident had happened, Yojin just showed it to him, just voluntarily showed it to him. Like, you know what, here we go. Here's the picture. Okay, I'm not hiding anything from you. And I just love that. It's like, even if we are on opposing sides, this is something that could help us find the truth. And so, in that sense, we will always be allies. Oh, I just love them so much. It's just, how in Western shows, there's always this like, will they or won't they energy. It's like, oh, they start out as like platonic, or they start out as workmates, office mates, or whatever, and you're just like, nah, nothing's gonna happen there. Or will it? Yeah, those are my feelings for Wang Han. It's like, I'll be okay if they're forever platonic, because it's just the most adorable relationship. Like, Wang Shimok to me, and perhaps also to Han Yojun, it's like a puppy, like a child. Just like those little moments when Shimok, like, despite his navigation of the social world, the social norms of everything, sometimes he just doesn't know how to act. And so you just genuinely see like the confusion in his face. and you just want to baby him. And sometimes I feel like that's what Han Yojin feels for him. It's just like, oh, it's a poor child who doesn't know how to express himself. So yes, once again, I'm okay with them being platonic because they're just so cute. But I will also be happy if they're romantic. I'll just put it out there. I'm not mad at it. I won't be mad either way. As long as they continue being the adorable pair that they are, I'll be happy. So there. Those are my feelings for Stranger. I have many feelings. You know what? This show is a must-watch. It's a must-watch. You must watch it, okay? Just stick to it. Just give it a chance. Just try to, go with the flow of what's happening and try to keep track of things, because it does get confusing. But just watch it and stick to it and trust the writer. Try watching it with someone else, because it might be difficult to keep up with at some point, and you may feel bored, but don't. Like, it's okay, just stick to it. I swear. Personally, before I even finished season 2, I already wanted season 3, but then we might have to wait another, 2 to 3 years for it. Cho Seung Woo and Baeduna will be old by then. I'm kidding. They joke about their age together, okay? They're good. They're the best. In 2 to 3 years, they're gonna be back together in Seoul. Like, Wang Shimok was transferred somewhere else, but he stopped by Seoul, and then he, stumbled upon another murder mystery, and then he has to stay in Seoul and figure it out. But, it's okay. Han Yojin is also somehow linked to this. The police is somehow part of this, of course. And so, magically, Han Yojin will find a way to be involved in the case, and they'll work together. And I'll be fine if they do that once again for the 3rd season in a row. I mean, I literally do not care. But it's okay. The thing with season 1 versus 2 is that they kind of did, a murder mystery for both of them. But they found a way to change up the plot a little bit, and change up like the message of the show and how they came about it and how they explored that murder mystery. So I think they can try it again. I think they can find another way to do it again for the 3rd season, and I will still be happy as long as there is a 3rd season and I get to see them at least the 3rd season, just one last time with these two, and then I'm good. I swear, I'm good. Wang Han happy ending, which can be platonic or romantic. Once again, I told you, I'm not complaining. Yeah, that's it. That's all you're getting from me today from Stranger. I just love the show so much. thank you for tuning in. I know this was a lot, and I know as much as I wanted to spoil and tell you everything, I cannot because I'm under the assumption that you haven't watched this yet. So I hope this is enough to convince you to watch. And for those who watched, thank you for still listening. I hope you enjoyed this. Just me gushing about Wang Han probably. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.